And we welcome everyone to another edition of Back Here Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. BYP, a very rapid fire, fast paced sports betting show that provides a substantial amount of in depth analysis, insight, as well as some weekly guests as we get set for week 3 of the NFL season. We always want to remind everyone that Back Here Play certainly is for entertainment purposes. And we always want to have a special hello to our very good friends over on NY48 WWON. And by the way, you guys are probably catching us now moving forward every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. to get you situated for your sports fix from a betting standpoint, and then obviously lead into what's going on the national broadcast as well. So with that being said, week 3 is among us. Very interesting week 2, to be quite honest with you. A lot of teams in panic mode, some teams falling to 0-2. We saw a lot of high-scoring games last week. A lot of games hit the over. That's something Lloyd Vance and I talked a little bit about last week. We're going to bring in Lloyd in a moment, but we're going to go through the slate of week 3. Obviously, we start with the Thursday night football. We're booking everything, Sunday night football, Monday night football. But as I alluded to, the overs were in play big time in week 2, and we'll see if that trend continues in week 3. All right, so as I mentioned, we're just cranking up. We're running through the gamut on all the action that is week 3 in the NFL. We want to remind you to get social with us as well at RichQ on X, and of course on IG and TikTok, RichQ on the mic. All right, so quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. We'll punch up our good friend Lloyd Vance, and we'll go through all the action in week 3. Keep it locked in to another edition of BYP. And we welcome you back as promised. We are joined by our very good friend Lloyd Vance. Host of Lloyd Vance is Insider Football on Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network, Florida, at Lloyd Vance. Always joins me pretty much every week throughout the calendar sports year, more so on Q, which you hear Monday to Friday, as well live on the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q, but of course on BYP. My friend, we are 2 weeks in. We know there's panic time from a betting standpoint, though. There's plenty of time to put a little coin in the pocket. How are you?
Doing good, Q. The roller coaster's beginning, and starting to see that separation that I always talk about. Starting to see the haves, the have-nots, and some of these teams are really bad, Q. And I don't see them win a lot of games this year.
And one of them might be the Miami Dolphins getting set to take on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have been red hot to open up the season 2-0. The Dolphins are 0-2. They're 0-1 on the road. The Buffalo Bills are laying 11.5. The total is 51.5. And I already got a couple player props I'm interested in from the Miami side. But Buffalo right now, you're starting to see that second gear, as you mentioned, and we're only in the month of September. But if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you might want to start leaning this team the rest of the way, because I don't see them scoring a lot of points. I don't see their offense waking up. I think this team is in store for a substantially long season. But Buffalo laying 11.5 in this one.
Yeah, that's a lot of points, Q. I know it's on the road for the Dolphins, and they've been kind of struggling. We'll see if the Dolphins are able to kind of take that and move forward. But you're right. They're not very good. Tua's not playing at a high level, struggling to get the ball to Tariq Hill. Chain, yes, he's had some plays here and there. But defensively, other than Chubb and Phillips, there really is not a lot in terms of that defense. So I expect the Bills to win this one big. It may be around 10 points, not as much as that 11.5, though.
Yeah. Now, what you mentioned Tua, it's interesting because when you look at some of these, these player props, over 1.5 picks. I mean, he's been struggling mightily. I think that's a play that I really like.
Yeah, the Bills have Benford and some guys in the back end that can get after you. And 1.5, though, that's a lot, Q. I may go under there. If a team can get some kind of a running game going, that's going to be a key. So Tua to limit his throws, but Tariq Hill and Waddle, they want to drive the football down the field. But yeah, That's going to be a lot of picks.
So you look at giving the odds at minus 156, implied probability right around 61%. This may not be the most under the radar prop bet, but if you think about it, opposing quarterback stats, when you talk about the Bills and how they play their cover 1, 2, 3, and 4 packages, when you're talking about 50 plus dropbacks, right? So when you go to that cover 4, 9 dropbacks, 5 completions, 8 attempts. Okay, cover 3, 16 dropbacks, 8 completions. But when you go to that cover 1, 11 dropbacks, 6 completions, no interceptions. So, I just look at this where I think they're going to pressure him to make a mistake. Do I see 2? No. Can I certainly see 1? Yes. The other prop in this game is Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns. He's coming off a 0 touchdown pass performance against the Jets. So I think this is the get right game where you start to see an MVP performance like we saw in week 1 when they came back and they defeated the Baltimore Ravens. In 14 games against Miami, he's thrown fewer than 2 touchdown passes in only 1 game.
Yeah, Q, I like that one. Last week it was kind of James Cook kind of running the show, and Allen made some big plays with his legs here and there. But you see him starting to get on the same page with Coleman and Shakir and their tight ends. So, yeah, I could definitely see him throwing 2 touchdown passes in this game.
All right, Sunday slate, 1 o'clock, Green Bay 2-0, taking on the Cleveland Browns, who are 0-2. And you'll see the Q tick at the bottom scroll right now. Green Bay has jumped the Philadelphia Eagles shortest odds to win the Super Bowl. They're laying 7.5, and the total is 41.5. Just a question of how much longer the Browns going to keep going to Joe Flacco. Obviously, the offense struggled last week, but Baltimore poured it on. They put up 41 in that route, 41-17. They had an opportunity to beat Cincinnati to start the season. Field goal kicker missed a couple extra points in a field goal attempt. There's 4 points right there in a 17-16 loss. So right now, the Brownies 0-2 with Green Bay, the Lions, and the Vikings staring them down over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for Cleveland. And maybe they go to one of the younger rookies to give them a spark. But right now, Joe Flacco is, he's firmly at the helm, and they want to see what the veteran can do. They had Junkins come in last week. He did run the ball, give him a little burst. But when you look at this Packers team, they're just so complete, Q. Yes, they've had some injuries at the receiver position with Reed going out recently with shoulder injury. But Jacobs is playing very well. The line and Love is looking very comfortable back there. So we know about this defense with Parsons. They're attacking, they're pressuring, and expect Gary and Parsons to apply some pressure on Flacco for him to make some mistakes, which he's prone to do. So, yeah, I think the Packers will win this one, but you always got to beware of the home dog.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you've got that home dog in the Titans, but again, struggling offensively, 0-2. They're getting 4.5 against a red hot Indianapolis Colts team. Colts obviously on the road, 2-0, 43.5 is the number. You've got that rookie quarterback again, and then you got the veteran and Daniel Jones playing on an extremely high level to start the season. You mentioned earlier in the week on Q that you think he can be the season's Sam Darnold. He just needs to continue to play mistake-free football, and I think what's working for Indianapolis is the fact that O-line has kept them upright.
Yeah, Steichen's done a very good job designing plays, and they're executing. And Daniel Jones, he's believing in the system, and they're keeping him clean, as you're talking about, leaning on Taylor first, running the football. He's really come along the early part of this season. They're getting the ball to Pittman and the receivers here and there. And the Colts are starting to believe, Q, and that's dangerous when you have a team like that. And let's face it, in this division, this is a divisional game, and it's going to be the first to 10. And if the Colts can get to 3-0, they're on their way to 10 wins. So I think the Colts win this one. And Cam Ward, not living up to the first number 1 overall pick status, but he is playing better each week. They should put up a fight a little bit.
Yeah, well, one play I do like in this one, Calvin Ridley over 50-plus receiving yards, minus 128. Heading into this game against Indianapolis, leads the Titan in team target share at 25%. He's caught 7 of 14 targets for 84 yards. If you go a little further, 7th in the league among qualified receivers in target share when facing the zone coverage. So we know defensively what the Colts do in that regard. I think he's going to have some opportunities to get some early catches in this one, just to get Ward's confidence going a little bit. So that's a play that I like in that game.
Yeah, and Ridley and Ao Manor, the other receiver, have definitely they've been putting up some numbers this early part of the season. It's going to depend how much pressure is on Ward in this game.
How about this one? Cincinnati and the Vikings. I mean, dust off the shelf, will you? You get Jake from State Farm Browning taking on Carson Wentz, who apparently, by all accounts, the Vikings are just giddy over Carson Wentz. I looked at this game. Minnesota's at home laying 2.5, but I also went back. Okay, Browning had a couple picks, but again, the reps were there last week for him. Carson Wentz, you're going to be able to knock off the rust. Like, to me, I this reeks of Cincinnati on the road with the points.
It's an interesting one because you have Carson Wentz. This is the fifth team he started for in 5 seasons. The only quarterback to do that, and it's going to be interesting how they like him. You're right. O'Connell and the guys, they think he can be separate in there and not miss a beat compared to what J.J. McCarthy's doing. We'll have to see. Carson Wentz, he's going to force some passes. A lot of times he's eyeballing receivers. He had some fumbling issues at the end with the Eagles. And Hendrickson's going to be a big key for the Bengals. If they can get some heat on him, then Wentz will make those mistakes. And the Vikings offensive line is beat up. Darashaw, I'm not sure he's going to play in this game. He's still coming back from that bad injury. They're also not going to have Jones in the backfield, and we'll see how Mason does. Been back and forth in this one. I ended up picking up the Bengals because I just think they're a hotter team. And we saw the Vikings last week start to have some cracks in their armor.
One of the lowest totals of the weekend, tied with a 405 matchup between the Saints and Seattle, sitting at 41.5. I'm leaning towards Cincinnati in this one. Steelers and the Patriots. There's reports coming out already. Maybe Aaron Rodgers should have waited to see if a quarterback got hurt. You got some issues with the Steelers. They look good week 1, but again, what have you done for me lately? They had the special teams gaffes. They didn't play particularly well last weekend against Seattle. The Patriots, I mean, this is a team, we kind of talked about them going into the season. I never liked the jump from 4 to 8 wins. I thought it was just recency bias, what they did in the offseason. All of a sudden, the maturation process of their quarterback. Now, granted, they put up 33 last weekend against a bad Miami Dolphins team. But we always talk about the look but don't touch kind of games. And here's one of them. Like, I don't like either team in this one. I know Pittsburgh's on the road laying 1.5 with the total 44.5.
Yeah, Q, this is one of those another home dog. And you're like, well, both teams kind of have struggled at certain points in the season. Steelers put up all those points the first week. And then last week, you talk about that home stinker they had against the Seahawks and losing badly 31-17. Johnson made that bad error and it kind of turned that game around. Yeah. Tomlin's working them tough, though, this week in practice and getting these guys right now. Aaron Rodgers, he's got to go back to week 1 Aaron Rodgers. It's crazy we're already saying that, so inconsistent at 41 years of age. And the Patriots, the key is obviously, are they going to have Christian Gonzalez? They're very good corner in this game, and can they get some pressure on Aaron Rodgers? So I think Watt's going to make a play, though, in this one. I think Watt will make a play. Drake May will make a fumble or interception to kind of turn this game around. The Steelers probably win an ugly one.
You mentioned pressure on the quarterback. We saw this last year, respectively, in the snow at the Link in that divisional matchup, ultimately won by the Philadelphia Eagles over the Rams. The Eagles were able to get to Hurts. The Rams were able to get to Hurts 6 times. Eagles were able to get to Matthew Stafford 4 or 5 times. Saquon ran roughshod in the snow. Eagles are laying 3.5. The total is 44.5. And I just want to point out right now, Saquon Barkley's rushing yards over under for Sunday's game, it's set at 89.5. That is 15.5 more than his season average of 74. So the Sharps believe he's going to be able to kind of run with success, somewhat quiet and bottled up, yeoman-like effort against Kansas City. But we saw what he was able to do against that Rams defense in that divisional playoff round last year.
Yeah, Q, that could be a good play. The Eagles played the Rams in the regular season last season, and then they played them again in the playoffs. And he had 2 huge games against them, and running behind that right side. I know Becton's not there anymore, but they still have Lane Johnson. And I expect them to try to lean on the run first and then Hurts to drive the football down the field. And for the Rams, Fisk, Verse, and the rest of those guys on the defense, they're going to have to make some plays for them. Stafford's played surprisingly well at the beginning of this season. He had the back injury, but he's still driving the football down the field. I want to see that matchup of Q Mitchell against Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. So it's going to be a chess match out there. But the Eagles at home they're a tough
Yeah.
outfit, and you got the Rams coming across the country. I know it's a revenge type situation, but the Eagles are just stacking W's. It may not be pretty. I think Hurts will find a way to get this one, and expect a lot of Saquon in this game.
Yeah, and the other thing too, when you look at a game like this, so Barkley, I should say the first two games of the season last year, 108 and 95 yards. Well, this season, the first two games, 60 and 88, somewhat quiet. But the fourth quarter is Saquon time, where he typically will rip off a 30-yarder, a 40-yarder, a 50-something yarder to the house. That's where you might want to lean towards the over on this one. And then probably, listen, a Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown is not going to hurt you, especially when they get into the goal line, when it comes to the tush push, because that's just right now. I mean, that's a play that no one can stop. I mean, we saw Chris Jones was so adamant when they mic'd him up. He's mic'd up the other day. 7 times they ran the play. 7 effing times they ran the play. Yeah, but you couldn't stop him. So, by the way, kind of a unique over on that one to 44.5, which is only a touch better than the Jets and the Bucks. Now, Buccaneers coming red hot. Baker Mayfield playing like a top 5 quarterback. They got a gut check win the other night. The Jets are 0-2. No Justin Fields, hence the line. Again, the movement right there. Tyrod Taylor is going to get the start. Tampa's laying 6.5. I think this is a horrible spot for the Jets. I think Tampa lays the wood here. I see this game like a 30-6 type of game.
Yeah, it's a home game, and Tampa is glad to be at home finally. And you're going to have Winfield and those guys flying around. They're going to try to get Taylor to make some mistakes. The Jets need to get Breece Hall going. He's had some difficulty at the beginning of the season. Yes, they've had Garrett Wilson make some plays for them. Defensively, they have all those big names, but the defense really has not been producing the way they need to. And when you talk about Tampa, their offense is really starting to come together with Bucky Irvin. They have White out there. Now, the big thing, though, is their offensive line is very banged up. They lost both their tackles. Christian Wirth, you're really not sure if he's going to play in this game. But Baker Mayfield, you talk about him, he's playing extremely well, driving the football down the field. Mike Evans, Mbuka as well. And they may hit back Chris as well. So, so Chris Godwin may come back from that injury. He's been practicing this week.
Raiders against the Commanders, a battle of one-on-one squads. This game will be played in Landover, Maryland. Washington laying 3.5. Totals 44.5. And again, the news really with this game, or if you will, up until kickoff time, status of Jaden Daniels, right? Because think about this: when you go through the week of practices and you got a guy that's banged up, and the report was, he's not going to practice any earlier than Friday of this week. So by the time we come on the air on WWON, we'll know if he's going to be in there or out there. Now, the line, because it really hasn't moved, suggests that I think he's trending towards playing. But that's something to kind of monitor, because if you turn around at 12:30 and now all of a sudden it's the Raiders +1, or the Raiders, I should say, laying 1 or 2, then for a fact you got a 4 or 5 point swing right there. Odd standpoint, Jaden Daniels is worth at least 6 or 7 points right there. So that's something to monitor. But as it stands right now, I haven't seen too much movement, but the line's sitting at 3.5. And if he plays, I would suspect it'll close right around 3.5, 4.
Yeah, obviously it's going to be key watching that knee injury. And everybody I talked to said he has been practicing this week, kind of limited. And they have Laremy Tunsil up front to try to help him. But the big key in this game, Q, is Geno Smith, the quarterback of the Raiders. 3 interceptions last week, looked very tentative in the pocket. You talk about inconsistently, because week 1 he looked great against New England, and last week he just looked terrible. So, their offensive line is a work in progress for them. Genty's coming along for them. But I expect Washington to win this game, to find a way. They have a lot of veteran leadership on that team. to win these types of games. Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner. Yeah, they're a little older, long in the tooth, but those guys know how to win these close games. So I expect them to win maybe a field goal type of game, so that half point may come into play.
Listen, the Monday night loss, that their first loss of the season was really bad, 20-9. You mentioned the quarterback did not play particularly well. Speaking of the Raiders, this is their third straight game to open up the season where they actually come in as an underdog. I don't like them in this spot, to be quite honest with you. Now, I think with Daniels kind of being that quote day to day, and again, if he's unavailable, then you'll go to Marcus Mariota, who's a veteran, right? So this is a quick turnaround for the Raiders because you get the loss against the Chargers, right? And again, they didn't look particularly well. Geno Smith, as you mentioned, did not throw the ball well at all. I mean, he was horrible. So I even think with Daniels being out there gives a little juice, but I think Mariota can run this offense as well. I just don't like the Raiders. I don't think they're a very good offensive team. That quarterback is too sporadic for my liking. I would grab them at 3.5, and I would actually play the over on this one, 44.5. And
Yeah,
by the way, the game opened at, not to interrupt you, the game opened at 7. So I talked about the movement a little bit. That's because obviously we didn't know the updates on Jaden Daniels, and the total was set at 47.5. It's dropped to 44.
yeah, and another big thing. Don't forget Brock Bowers very banged up with that knee. A big key for the Raiders on their offensive side of the ball. So definitely lean towards Commanders in this one.
All right, midway through this edition of BYP, back your play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us as we are almost through the 1 p.m. docket. Falcons and the Panthers. The Panthers, as much as we sit there and say, hey, they're playing harder, they're 0-2. The quarterback has regressed. He's thrown 4 interceptions, or four touchdowns, 3 picks already in 2 games. Atlanta's laying 5.5. I don't know if that was a great win by the Falcons the other night in an ugly game against the Vikings, or more about the Minnesota Vikings because they had some issues with their quarterback. But listen, I look at Atlanta. I'm not a Penix fan. You know that. And I can't put too much weight into Penix as a quarterback just now because that team should basically run the ball. I mean, I look at their offense, and you have arguably the most talented back in Robinson in the entire NFL. To me, their offense should be predicated around running the football. I think they're going to be able to run against the Carolina Panthers. But again, I just don't trust the Atlanta. I've never had a good history with the Falcons when it comes to a betting standpoint. So again, I'm going to bail out on this one. I'm not touching this game.
And I don't blame you. It's a divisional game, so you just never know what's going to happen. But another road favorite, and Q last week visiting teams 9-7, so you're starting to see that around the league where that home field advantage not what it used to be. I expect the Falcons to kind of come in there and lean on Penix. Obviously, Bijan Robinson, you got to get the football to him. There were some cases where he was forcing passes to Pitts and Drake London, and that led to some interceptions. So, yeah, I think workman efficient type victory here for the Falcons where they run the football. And then defensively, you have Jesse Bates and Walker and Pierce, those 2 rookies there. They're coming along. And the Panthers, Young has just made too many mistakes. And the defense is no name, the offensive line, kind of patchwork. I expect the Falcons to win this one. May, be a big turnover type game.
I want to remind everyone BYP is powered and presented by our good friends over Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off. Use the promo code in the show notes, BYP20. Weather's starting to cool down, so I'll warm up with a good cup of Joe. And I always drink my coffee, my cafe con leche. Air. We always have a little fun with that. Yeah, again, some of these contests, some of these games this week, and I was looking at them, I was like, oh, man, I guess you got to get rid of some of these games because when I say get rid of, like work through them because they're not the sexiest of matchups. And certainly that game's not sexy. And listen, I don't think the Texans against Jacksonville is a sexy contest. Now that line's moved a little bit. Jacksonville laying 1.5. The Texans have major issues with that offense and that quarterback. But I can also turn around, Lloyd, and say the same thing about Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen not on the same page right here. Jacksonville laying 1.5. total right around 44, juice to the over 44.5. Man, I would say in this instance, I'm going to take the home team, Jacksonville. I would love to see them start to incorporate Evan Ingram a little bit in that offense.
Yeah, and he's a little banged up, Q. So we're having to see if he's ready to go in this one. And Jacksonville really leaned on ATN, and he was moving the football down the field. And Trevor Lawrence, as you said, it was interesting to see him wave off Cohen. They're already fighting after 2 games. We'll see how that comes
Not
along.
good.
And Hines Allen and that defense, they're going to have to get pressure on CJ Stroud, because you saw on Monday night when he got pressured, he made bad mistakes with the football, wasn't able to connect with Nico Collins the way he needed to, and they're struggling to run a football with that offensive line, and Nick Chubb's a little older. So another divisional game where I've been back and forth. I'll go with the Texans because they're just so desperate. If they go 0-3, their season's basically over. So I think they find a way to win, but Jacksonville's going to put up a fight.
Yeah, and how about me? I'm pulling out Evan Ingram, who's playing for Denver. I'm doing a double check here, and I'm like, wait, that's not who I meant. I meant the kid Strange, the other tight end, the
Right.
24-year-old, the kid out of Penn State. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing right here? I mean, I think he was targeted 3 times. He's only been targeted 6 or 7 times. I thought he was going to open up the offense a little bit. Maybe they do need Evan Ingram. I don't know. Denver's not using him. So in any event, please, I stand corrected to the viewing and listening audience on that one. Yeah, I guess in this instance, you go with that home team. Texans, their offense is it's anemic, man. It's a bad looking offense right now. Now to Ingram's current team, the Denver Broncos. Listen, that's a tough loss on the road against Indianapolis. That's a 4:05 game against the Chargers. On the road, Denver is. Chargers laying 2.5, 45.5. The Colts lose it. I should say the Colts win it last week over Denver because of the leverage call, where ultimately the Broncos gave up, 15 yards on that penalty, and then it was a much more meekable field goal. This team is a player or two away, obviously, from being 2-0, but I really like what the Chargers are cooking. I really do. They had the big win against Kansas City. Defensively, they shut down the Raiders and caused some turnovers. And their offense is just very efficient. I'm a Herbert fan. I absolutely love the Chargers in this game.
It's going to be an interesting one, too, because it's a divisional prove-it type of game. As you said, the Broncos felt like they won last week and it was taken away from them. But, they were kind of sloppy at stages in the game. So they're going to need more of R.J. Harvey, getting him going, running the football. And Nick's, he has not looked like that MVP guy we thought he would be at the beginning part of the season. He's got to play
That's
better.
on me.
Yeah, we've talked about Ingram a little banged up, and the receivers kind of not
Yeah.
sure. But their big things, their defense. I mean, their defense, their calling card. So Herbert against his defense, we'll see if they're able to get the pressure on him because the Chargers' offensive line has kind of been shuffled. We know they moved him to left tackle. They look good, though. Najee Harris came in and was running the football effectively for them. Big win for them against Raiders, and why not? I think they'd be 3-0 in the division if they can get this one at the beginning of stages of the season, which is huge for them. Herbert driving the football. He's been the one that's looked like the MVP. So I'll say the Chargers win this one. Dicker, the kickers, look very good, very efficient, not missing kicks. I say they win on one of his field goals.
Yeah, and the one thing too, Denver does play much better defense against the run. And you mentioned Bo Nix offensively; he's passing for a $191, lower than his prop bet total for this matchup at 216. He's not thrown for more than 216 yards in a game this season, albeit it's only been 2 games. A $176 against the Titans, and then 206 efficient, played well against the Colts, but also had that bad pick. And I think that's kind of the key. Sometimes he throws that, really ill-advised type of pass where you're like, oh, what are you doing here? Saints 0-2, and they're traveling to a tough spot to play in Seattle. Seahawks are 1-1. This is a rather large line. Seattle is laying 7.5, and the total is 41.5. And I find it pretty interesting because Spencer Rattler, he's I don't think he's a very good quarterback, but he has shown you that he can play a little bit. Now, he's coming into this game off a 3 touchdown performance against the 49ers where they scored 21 points. For the most part, the line has kept him upright. I'm a little curious on why this line is 7.5. 8, even though the Saints are not a good team, I think they can go in there. Seattle's not the place that it used to be, but I think they can cover this number.
7.5 may be too much, Q. I kind of agree with you. But I think a big thing is the 12th man. Everybody says, oh, it was so hard to play in Seattle for all those years. Think of the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson days, and they're long gone, as you said. And it's going to be on Darnold. Can Darnold drive the football down the field to JSN, who's had a very good start to his season? Kenneth Walker played pretty well last week for them. And then when you talk about the Saints, there's just not a lot to get excited about. Yeah,
No.
Raptors been kind of efficient, and Kamara's still there. Olave stayed relatively healthy, and Juwan Johnson, their tight ends, made some plays. Defensively, they just can't stop anybody. So I kind of look at Seattle winning a kind of shootout type of game here. But yeah, covering the 7.5 may be too much to ask.
Spencer Rattler seeking his first career win. He's 0-8 as a starter up until this point, and Seattle's not beaten New Orleans since the teams met back in 2013, the divisional round. Now, again, I don't know how much of that you want to kind of play into this. Maybe this is a game where Darnold just kind of sits comfortably back in the pocket, but to me, Seattle's not a team, even against a bad team, where I would believe they command 7.5, 8 points. Now, New Orleans is 0-2. SU 26-21 loss to the 49ers in week 2. So right now, Kellen Moore is 0-2 ATS on the season. But listen, if this closed at 8, I'm telling you, part of me, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, at plus 310, I might sprinkle something on a little bit on the Saints money line.
Ooh, that's bold.
I'm backing my play on that one.
Yeah, we'll see. Kellen Moore they're going to win some games eventually. They're a competitive team, Q, and they're not rolling over for their opponent. So, yeah, this could be a chance for them to go in there and make a statement. Obviously, Rattler, as you said, he's got to make some plays, and hopefully Olave will help him out there. But it should be a fun one to watch.
Since 04, road dogs between +6 and +9, that one between 3 to 5 games. The prior year, 82-30 ATS, which is 73%. Not a bad number to kind of, lean on. All right, Dallas after that wild win against the Giants, against the Bears. Bears 0-2. I think the Bears are a sinking ship. They're starting to question the quarterback, Caleb Williams. There's talk of maybe benching this kid. Dallas on the road at 1.5. I just think offensively they're going to be able to move the football, and I think this is going to be a high-scoring game where the Bears are going to play from behind. But I'll keep it simple and short. I like Dallas in this one.
Yeah, Q. I kind of like the Cowboys in this one too, and Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they like to put up points against bad teams, and so the Bears are struggling. They're not going to have Jalen Johnson, who's out, who's their All-Pro corner. He's out with a groin injury. And then when you talk about Caleb Williams, he seems lost out there, Q, and he's not on the same page with Ben Johnson already, and it's just a mess for them. So I think Dallas wins this one. Chicago, crazy. Johnson could be on hot seat in his first season. So
do you think Caleb Williams? We know Dallas defense stinks, and a player prop. So the over-under for Williams is 236 passing yards, which is right around 28, 29 yards higher than his average of 2.8 on the year. He's not thrown for over 236.5 yards in a game this season. Look, he hasn't really surpassed any passing props this season in 2 games. But is this the game where if they are playing behind, he might have that 288, 275, 288 passing performance?
Well, with Bland and Diggs kind of banged up in the Cowboys secondary, he may get his opportunities, but I still tend to think I take the under. Caleb Williams is struggling, in terms of the scheme. They tinkered around with the offensive line, but he's still, I don't know if it's him holding the ball too long or what, but he's getting pressured a lot in games and he's making mistakes. not a great running game with DeAndre Swift and the rest of the guys. So yeah, I definitely think that you're looking at Dallas winning this game against the Bears.
How much, you mentioned that he had to drop back to pass 30 something odd times. They only ran it 27, but they also got blown out last week. I mean, they were down 14-7 in a blink of an eye. I think 24-14, 34-14 after three. So, it changes the game plan a little bit. Now, is Dak going to have a Jared Goff type of game? Like, I'll pull up Dak Prescott. If we're looking at props and you're looking at, someone who's coming in a little hot, let me pull it up real quick and get your thoughts, because Jared Goff was able to just torch him. So Dak Prescott right now, we're looking at, wow, 278, over 278 passing yards.
Yeah, I would tend to think he make it if the weather holds out. That's going to be a key. They're playing in Chicago. The weather holds out. I think he'll be able to make some big plays. George Pickens, get him involved. We talked about C.D. Lamb, and then Javonte Williams. Yeah, he's going to get some runs here and there, but they're going to be a passing team first. So I think you hit that number.
All right, creeping into the fourth quarter of this edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here, our good friend Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. Don't forget, get social with Lloyd at Lloyd Vance on X, and of course myself, Rich Q on X and IG and TikTok, Rich Q on a mic. Like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. And we always want to remind everyone, BYP is for entertainment purposes only, and we are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Cardinals and the 49ers, Kyler Murray, with the stuff with the Vic nonsense this week, had to kind of backtrack. They're 2-0. Marvin Harrison Jr. not getting his touches, but he doesn't care because they're 2-0. And then you got the 49ers, and the line again, is Purdy going to go? Is he not going to go? Kind of a game time GT decision. Nice little battle of 2-0, 425 in Santa Clara. 49ers laying the 2.5. So you got the hook, but it's not over 3. And that's always a little danger spot right there. The total is 44.5. Here's a nice little NFC West matchup.
Yeah, this is a divisional game. So we've talked a lot about how these divisional teams, one of them can beat one week this time, and then the next time they play, it's a different story. So we'll see how this one turns out. Both of them 2-0, as you said, but they've kind of struggled to kind of get to that mark. I'm Mac Jones starting for the Niners.
He played well.
Yeah, he did. Is he going to be the guy? And Chris McCaffrey, he's still kind of nursing that calf injury out there. They gave him some rest this week. Going to be interesting to see how he does. Kyler Murray, I just think he's been playing very well, and the defense has come along for them with Xavier Collins and the rest of those guys. They've been getting some timely turnovers. I think this week maybe Mac Jones makes a mistake, and the Cardinals capitalize on it. So I'll take the Cardinals in a close win.
If Purdy plays, you think he'll be pretty? He's got a chance to play, right? But you believe he'll be limited no matter what.
Correct. Yeah, he has a chance, but I tend to think they're going to give Mac Jones another start because that injury was pretty bad. And then you start talking about who's going to help Mac Jones or Purdy. Pearsall is their main guy. Juwan Jennings just starting to come back along.
I think I'm glad you mentioned Ricky Pearsall. I think he breaks out. I really do. Look, he's solid, right? He's filling in, as you mentioned, for that injured wideout and Brandon Ayuk. Opening the season, 4 receptions, 108 yards, added 4 for 56 last weekend, yet to score a touchdown. So I'm going to grab him for a anytime touchdown. And he's played well against that secondary of Arizona. Last season, 6 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown in one game against them. That was a small little sample size. Obviously, couldn't suit up in that, prior to that because of the gunshot, a wound, whatnot. But right now, he's our top receiver, right? The other prop that I like in this one, the 49ers, we know they have some injuries, right, with their front four and with the defense. When they're healthy, they're healthy. They're really good. But I think Kyler Murray is going to have an opportunity to kind of run roughshod, to be quite honest with you. And I'm going to pull up his player prop, but I think San Francisco has had issues over the years to kind of contain him. Can you see him extending plays, those 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 kind of take off and run?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to. They got to contain obviously Bosa and Warner for that Niners defense. But yeah, I think that Kyler Murray's going to have to be that playmaker. And Marvin Harrison Jr., they need him to kind of step forward. He's really been kind of quiet this early part of the season. So, interesting divisional game, and we'll see how it shakes out.
All right, let me give you the Murray props. I don't want his passing. I want his, well, passing, they're saying 214. That's not what I want. I want to get his rushing props. And right now, he is,
I'll say probably 35.
it's I think it's, I'm looking at 36.
There we go.
I, I mean, I think he's going to go over. He's also throwing, he also will throw a pick here and there too. But I like the player prop of him going over. That's just me.
Yeah, Q, I think he'll get a chance to break out of the pocket. A lot of times the coverage turns its back when going out with Harrison and Wilson, their other receiver, and then he can make some plays behind that. So, and don't forget about McBride in this game. A lot of people have really thought he's played well at the beginning part of the season. Had looked like one of the best tight ends in the league.
Sunday Night Football. Here's your upset of the weekend. Giants 0-2 home opener, getting 6.5 against the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, who are 0-2. The total is 45.5. Russell Wilson played really well aside from the bad pick and play in overtime. I think Russell Wilson is going to have another one of those let him cook vintage. It pains me to say it as a Giant fan because I didn't want Russell Wilson, but I'm happy for him because he shut up a lot of people, including myself, for 1 week. But I think this is the game. Russell Wilson might go off for about 350 in this one against that Kansas City secondary. I'll tell you, part of me thinks everyone say this is the get right spot for Kansas City. I believe they're leaking oil. I believe they're a broken franchise and team right now. I think if the Giants had an opportunity to pick them off, this is the best spot for them.
Whew. It depends what Patrick Mahomes is going to show up, Q. You know
Oh,
what I
that's
mean? Is he going to be ready to play? And if it's a shootout, I can't bet against him. And the thing is, Wilson made some great throws. Him and Neighbors were on the same page. And yes, I expect him to get deep. Maybe Mahomes this time will do better throwing a deep ball to Thornton. He did hit one late against them, but they're going to. Jalen Royals has been practicing as well as Xavier. They'll see if those two are going to play for the Chiefs in this one. They need him because Pacheco, we know he has not been doing much. Chris Jones against that Giants D line, I like that matchup there. So I'll say that the Chiefs win this one in a field goal game, but it's early desperation for this team.
Well, I'm going to give you a bold prediction. Russell Wilson again throws for over 350 and 3 touchdowns. He's connecting with Neighbors. They've established a good rapport. Wandell Robinson getting in the mix. Darius Slayton, the vet, has been extremely quiet. And the reason I bring it up, this Chiefs defense allowed 218 passing yards per game this season, right? So you look at that win or that performance against the Dallas Cowboys and a loss for Russell Wilson and the Giants, 453 touchdown. He's got the arm, the moon ball, right? Big game situation, bright lights. Here we go. We know the last time he played in that stadium, won a Super Bowl, Legion of Doom. The Chiefs secondary has been extremely vulnerable. You go to that first game overseas in Brazil. What was it? Justin Herbert, I think, threw for 314 and 3 touchdowns. Hurts had to be efficient last week, right? But I just think with some of these weapons, they're going to get loose. 6.5. Man, I'm telling you, I also believe this game goes over. I feel as though Patrick Mahomes has lost trust in Travis Kelce. And it's one of the reasons he keeps kind of looking them off. They haven't been able to establish the ground game. The offensive line is a little shaky. So here's another thing. If the Giants defense wants to get off, this might be the week to do it. I'm telling you, as crazy as it sounds, the hell with the 6.5. I'm starting to believe the Giants might win this game outright. They're going to win a game this year. It's just a question of when, right? And I believe their defense is better than what we saw last week. Inexcusable, the alignment in overtime by Shane Bowen. But offensively, Are they going to be able to keep this type of pace up? I don't know, but I think Russell Wilson's going to have an opportunity to put up some points on Sunday night.
It's going to be interesting, that matchup of Carter and Burns in that defensive line against Simmons and Taylor, who struggled a little bit for the Chiefs' offensive line. And I think a big key in this game, Q, is which team can run the football, whether it's the Giants with Scatterboo or the Chiefs getting Pacheco going. So
Pacheco.
it's going to be an interesting battle there. But I think it's closer than people think. I would probably take the Giants in points.
It's funny too. You mentioned Scatterboo. I thought they keyed too much on him, right? I mean, they have Singletary, they have Tracy, who I thought maybe have 1,000-yard season if they gave him the football. But the Giants years ago put Adoree Jackson to return punts. He got hurt in kickoffs. Now they're sticking the kid Tracy back there. Like, it makes no sense to rhyme or reason. But if Wilson continues to play well like he did against Dallas, all this does is push back the timeline for Jackson Dart, right? Because I don't see the Giants being favored in many games this season. After Kansas City, they have the Chargers. They go on the road against the Saints. I don't know. Maybe they're favored in that one. They're not going to be favored against the Eagles, Denver, the Eagles, the 49ers. Maybe they're favored on the road against the Bears or New England. I don't know. I just, when I see a line like that, 6.5, 7, they didn't play horrible week one. They played bad, but they're not that bad. They played really good offensively week two, but they're not that good offensively. I think they're somewhere in between, hence 3 or 4 wins. I just think 6.5, 7. I think they're going to cover this number.
Yeah, it's a lot. And always beware the home dog, Q. There were 5 games, I think, last week where the underdog was an outright winner, and it can happen. And nothing's a given for this Chiefs team. They've just struggled all season in terms of penalties and just looking sloppy. And you talk about Travis Kelce, you do all the bright lights, and everybody's gonna be talking about Sunday Night Football and Mr. Taylor Swift. Well, he's got to make some plays, because that play against the Eagles where he bobbled the ball and got intercepted, that just turned the whole thing. So interesting watch on Sunday night.
And how about the points? Commanders, Green Bay, 45 points. Jacksonville, Cincinnati, 58 points. The Giants and the Cowboys, 77 points. The Bears and the Lions, 73 points. You go on and on. The 49ers and the Saints, that was a 47 point. Seattle and the Steelers, that was 48 points. The Ravens and the Browns, that was 58. So we're starting to see the trend here where the offense is now, after a couple weeks, it's always the defense leading the charge. The offense is starting to wake up a little bit, which leads us into our last game for week 3. Lions, Ravens, both teams coming off waxing the opposition. This is a good game on paper. This is a game where I kind of sit back and say, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to play the over 3.5. You would imagine it's going to be one of those wide open kind of track meets. Detroit can move the football. We already know that the Ravens can move the football, and they can certainly run the football. Henry was quiet last week, so maybe he's a little angry come Monday night. Baltimore's laying 4.5.
Yeah, interesting game. Everybody's going to say, okay, the Lions got right last week, and Goff had 5 touchdown passes. They scored 52 points. But this Ravens D, it was supposed to be their calling card this season with Hamilton and the rest of those guys and Owe getting some pressure up front. But they have not been playing that well. So it's going to be interesting to see if Gibbs and Montgomery can run the football, establish that, and then help Goff out to hit that play action. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We know Lamar Jackson's going to be excited to be on Monday Night Football, make some plays. Back and forth in this one. I think the Ravens win it in a field goal type situation. So maybe take the Lions in those 4 points. But I expect an exciting game, but a close one.
Derrick Henry, his prop for rushing yards, 84.5 minus 111. Receiving yards over 4.5 yards, minus 118. He's rushed for 96 yards per game this season, outpaced Monday's over-under of 84.5. He's exceeded his rushing yards prop once in 2 opportunities. He's rushed for a touchdown in 1 game this year with multiple rushing touchdowns in a game. And I just pulled this up because sometimes we do get a little too cocky when it comes to these running backs, receptions out of the backfield. It's just natural. We think, okay, they're going to pop out and here we go. He had 1 reception against Buffalo, and he ran for 169. He was very quiet and bottled up. He only had 11 touches against Cleveland for 23 yards. So, look, he's carried the football 29 times in 2 games. They need to establish him like they did last year, and really like they did at some points in that game to open up the season against Buffalo. Do you believe that they're going to feed him early against the Lions?
Yeah, Q. I think last week was kind of aberration for Derrick Henry. He just was not getting it going, and he kind of went away from him. A very low output, but the Ravens are going to have to block Hutchinson and those guys up front. They're the key to that defense, but I think Lamar Jackson will do a lot of read option, get it to Henry, and they'll try to establish him. Expect him to get about 25 plus touches because he looked so good that first week
Oh yeah,
running downhill.
and I also think this game where Lamar Jackson's probably going to have two or three touchdowns. I mean, think about it. Their offense has been dominant 7 of the first 8 quarters this season, right? And you talk about the fourth quarter against Buffalo. I think that's kind of bizarre. Maybe, as you mentioned, an aberration. I think even against a really good team, a strong team like the Lions, I think Lamar Jackson is going to put up those MVP type of numbers. I'm looking for 2 to 3 touchdowns, and I'm certainly looking for an anytime touchdown. I can see him scrambling near the goal line.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And watch for Zay Flowers in this one. They really started getting the connection. And the Lions have had some problems on the back end, letting up big plays. So, yeah, I think the Ravens will get their yards, but again, it's going to probably be a close game.
All right, that is a look at week 3 in the NFL, this edition of BYP. I mentioned that the Super Bowl odds have shifted right now between the Eagles and Green Bay. Green Bay is the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. Is this prisoner of the moment? Is it maybe we're looking at the Eagles and their offense really hasn't clicked and Green Bay's has? Or, hey, let's just kind of pump the brakes and relax. We're only in week 3.
I say pump the brakes and relax week 3. But, after they made that trade for Micah Parsons, everything just changed in terms of the lines and the gambling in terms of the Packers. And rightfully so, they look very good. Been pretty much healthy except for Reed's injury, and that defense is attacking. So, yeah, they should be up there. But I say the Eagles, you still got to keep an eye on them because they are the champions. Jalen Carter's a little banged up this week, so that's an injury to keep an eye on.
And by the way, NFL MVP with Joe Burrow dealing with the toe injury, that kind of crushes anyone that had future bets for Joe Burrow as MVP, which now you got guys like Justin Herbert, the aforementioned Jordan Love in Green Bay, kind of rising to the top a little bit when you talk about some of these betting odds, which is really interesting. I still, listen, there's still that tier 1, right? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, right? Back and forth. So right now they're both at plus 325 bet MGM, 25% probability of winning. But with Burrow and the injury, Herbert, Love, Patrick Mahomes slid from third place, plus 700 opening odds to 6 at plus 1800. CJ Stroud had perhaps the worst slide of anyone not named Joe Burrow because he opened at 7th. Now he's at 15. So as it stands right now, you got Jackson, Allen, Herbert, Love, 325, plus 800, plus 800. So obviously, the winners, if you think about it, because of this injury, Justin Herbert and Jordan Love.
Yeah, and they'll be in the mix with the 2 favorites, so we'll see how it plays out. But Q, I'd say, yeah, really only 5 players have a real chance to win that MVP award.
Best team right now heading into week 3 in the AFC, or do you want to wait another week or two and get, 4 weeks in the books?
In the AFC, I definitely have to go with the Buffalo Bills. They've just been dominated. Yes, it was a close win over Baltimore the first week, but last week they took care of business against the Jets. And don't forget, they only playing 5 teams that are playoff teams this season. So I'd say they're number 1 right now.
And then lastly, we always look at these rotating odds when we talk about some of these head coaches that are on the hot seat. And I still believe right now, we talk about Brian Daboll, we talk about Stefanski, Mike McDaniel's right there. I guess I hate having this conversation, but what coach is likely to get fired before October?
Yeah, you'd hate to take somebody's job, Q, but you know what? The way things are trending with Mike McDaniel, it's not good. I watched that presser after the game. It was a little you know, nasty getting back and forth between him and the reporters, and the team just seems in total disarray. We talked about Stephen Ross at his advanced age. He may be getting a little impatient. Chris Greer, has he built a good enough team as the GM? So a lot going on with the Dolphins, and they're just not playing well on the field. So if they get embarrassed against the Bills, yeah, that hot seat could get even hotter.
which we both believe that they will. All right, so that's a look at week 3 of the NFL action. As always, this is Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. It's a rapid-fire, fast-paced sports betting show. Provides in-depth insight, analysis, as well as wonderful weekly guests like our guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Every Monday, 8 to 9 Eastern Time, Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network Florida. Check them out on demand. Check out the website. Follow Lloyd on X at Lloyd Vance. He'll also join me. He joins me every Tuesday for Vance's View on Q, and of course on our Football Friday Bonanza. And as we always like to say, my friend, if you say it, you play it. If you back it, you're going to stack it. Appreciate you jumping on board with your week 3 insight on this edition of Back Your Play. Appreciate you, pal. We'll do it again next week.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. Our guy, Lloyd Vance. Give him a follow on X and as well on Facebook. And we always want to appreciate and say thank you to the wonderful folks that keep us on the air. Our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. We're powered by SR 1029 FM The Game. And you can always get social with me at Rich Q on Q, XIG, and of course, TikTok, Rich Q on a mic. Check out the YouTube channel. And Monday to Friday, live 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time with On Q. And we always like to say BYP is for entertainment purposes. Now you can tune in every Saturday and Sunday. We're so thrilled to be part of the NY48 WWON family. Great programming out there. Check them out on Roku. You can download the app. You can look at the guide. You can look at the schedule as well. And as I mentioned, always keep me locked and loaded on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. You can follow me. Very easy to do. And also IG, TikTok. We always post the bets and the insight on our TikTok account, Rich Q on the mic. As always, we'll be back in a saddle on a Monday edition of On Q. We'll be back with BYP next Saturday and Sunday right here on NY48 WWO. And always remember, entertainment purposes only, money management. But we always like to say, we always like to say, if you say it, you better play it. And if you back it, guess what? You are going to stack it. Hey, good luck with your week 3. Hope you put a little coin in the pocket, and we will be right back here next Saturday and Sunday with another edition of Back Your Play with Q right here on NY48 WWON. Everyone have a wonderful sports weekend and enjoy all the football games. And don't forget, catch me Monday, 5 to 6 Eastern Time with On Q.